The 12th of March, 1938. German troops cross the border into Austria and invade the country without firing a single shot. They are not met with armed resistance, but with cheers and flowers. While thousands of Austrians turn out to greet Adolf Hitler as he travels first to Linz and then on to Vienna, terrified Jews, leftists, and other opponents of the Nazi regime race towards the country's borders, hoping to reach them before they are closed. Most become trapped in a rapidly Nazifying Austria. Several months later, the Nazis begin operating the Mauthausen concentration camp near Linz, which is closely connected to forced labor performed by inmates in the camp's granite quarries. The conditions at the camp are even more severe than at most other Nazi concentration camps and are characterized by medical experiments, systematic abuse, mistreatment, and mass killings conducted by SS officers. One of them is Georg Bachmayer. Georg Bachmayer was born on the 12th of August 1913 in Friedolfing, then part of the German Empire. He attended a public school for 7 years, after which he worked as a laborer at a brick factory. On the 30th of January 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany by President Paul von Hindenburg. In April of the same year, Bachmayer joined the SS, and 1 month later he became a member of the Nazi Party. In January 1934, he began serving in the SS Guard Battalion, Upper Bavaria, a part of the Death's Head units which guarded the Dachau concentration camp. The Death's Head units were an independent unit within the SS, responsible for administering the Nazi concentration and extermination camps throughout Germany and later in occupied Europe. In March 1938, Bachmayer took part in the Anschluss, which was the annexation of Austria into the Third Reich. In the fall of the same year, Nazi Germany annexed the Sudetenland, a border area of Czechoslovakia where the ethnic German population lived, and Bachmayer was among the troops that participated in the occupation. The Second World War started on the 1st of September 1939, when Germany invaded Poland. And by this time, Bachmayer had already been serving at the Mauthausen concentration camp, where he arrived in January of the same year. Mauthausen concentration camp had become operational from the 8th of August 1938, several months after the German annexation of Austria, where the SS transferred the first prisoners from the Dachau concentration camp. The site was chosen because of the nearby granite quarry and its proximity to Linz. During this phase, the prisoners, all of them German and Austrian men, had to build their own camp and work in the quarry. In December 1939, the SS ordered the construction of a second concentration camp, Gusen, just a few kilometers from Mauthausen. The Gusen camp went into operation in May 1940. Living and working conditions in Mauthausen, as in Gusen, were harsh, which led to the death by murder, mistreatment, starvation, exposure and disease of more than half of the prisoners. In 1941, the SS started to construct a gas chamber and other installations at Mauthausen for the systematic murder of large groups of people. After his capture, Mauthausen Commandant Franz Zerreis recalled the inmates had been killed by gassing, hard labor, or through benzene injections, or how at an outside temperature of -12 degrees Celsius they made the inmates bathe in water and then stand in the open stark naked until they died. Some inmates had to haul stones until they collapsed. Then they were shot, and their record was annotated trying to escape. From March 1940, Bachmayer served at Mauthausen as the protective custody camp leader and was responsible for all prisoners and the SS personnel tasked with camp administration and prisoner supervision. He also inspected the subcamps associated with Mauthausen, such as the Ebensee camp, the construction of which he was briefly in charge of in November 1943. Bachmayer was infamous for his extreme sadism and brutality, and was intensely feared by the prisoners. When new prisoners arrived at the camp, Bachmayer welcomed them with a chilling message that no one had ever left Mauthausen alive, and the only way out was through the chimney. He even suggested to them that they might as well go straight into the wires, referring to the electrified fences surrounding the concentration camp. Bachmayer was responsible for enforcing camp rules and carrying out official punishments for prisoners. He oversaw executions, and in some cases, personally conducted them. On one occasion, along with several other SS officers, he massacred 300 deportees, who had been transferred from another camp with an axe. On a different occasion, Bachmayer marched towards the torture building known as the bunker. Shortly after, he returned, followed by 2 sturdy SS officers dragging an unconscious body. The escapee had been caught that afternoon and had been beaten as punishment for the reckless attempt. The prisoner appeared barely conscious as the SS officers brought him before Bachmayer, who spoke to him without receiving a response. Frustrated, he cursed and ordered a bucket of water which he splashed into the prisoner's face, reviving him slightly. Bachmayer issued commands, and the prisoner weakly nodded in understanding. The inmate was then dragged to the gallows, placed on a stool, and held upright by 2 SS officers. Slowly, he raised his hand and placed the noose around his neck. Bachmayer, looking to add to the performance, ordered the loudspeakers at the guardhouse to play a melancholic tango melody. The French song named "Come Back" filled the air. With his last bit of strength, the escapee cynically pulled on the rope and kicked the stool away. Other prisoners were then forced to march past the gallows in formation for hours, each obliged to look at the hanged man. There were countless reports of Bachmayer's brutality, and former prisoners recounted his cruel treatment, torture, and murders committed by his own hands. His speciality was setting 2 mastiff-like bloodhounds on inmates, which would literally tear them to death. This was known in camp jargon as dying from the dog's kiss, and one of the dogs was named Klled. Bachmayer also attended gas chamber killings, such as the murder of 262 Czechs in 1942, and according to witnesses, participated in the development of a temporary gas van. One particularly horrifying incident further illustrates Bachmayer's cold-blooded behavior. Once, during roll call in Block 20, it was discovered that a prisoner was missing. Block 20 was notorious for housing prisoners who were part of Operation Bullet, where they were kept under special security measures to die of starvation. When the absence was noticed, all other prisoners in the camp were forced to stand in line. A search operation was launched, and eventually the missing prisoner was found hiding in one of the regular blocks, trying to avoid starvation. When Bachmayer received the report that the prisoner had been found, he trembled with excitement and quietly said to himself, "I'll batter this one to death myself," which he later did. Towards the end of the war, the Mauthausen concentration camp became the destination for evacuations from camps near the front line. Tens of thousands of prisoners arrived in several large transports. Overcrowding, lack of food, and rampant disease led to mass death among the prisoners in the final months before liberation. On the 5th of May 1945, the US Army reached Gusen and Mauthausen. After the liberation, some prisoners were in such a weakened state that many still died in the days and weeks that followed the liberation. An estimated 197,000 prisoners passed through the Mauthausen concentration camp and its subcamps between August 1938 and May 1945. At least 95,000 died there, and more than 14,000 of them were Jewish. In early May 1945, Georg Bachmayer fled with the senior staff from the camp and found refuge on a farm near Münzbach, in the northern part of Austria, where his wife Tekla, posing as a refugee, awaited him with their 2 daughters. Unlike other SS officers who served at Mauthausen and were later put on trial, Bachmayer cowardly avoided justice. On the night of the 8th of May 1945, when he committed suicide after killing his wife and 2 daughters, he was 31 years old. On the 23rd of May 1945, Bachmayer's body was exhumed by a US Army commission to identify him and to document it photographically. In 1948, his body was exhumed again and buried in the Münzbach Eastern Cemetery along with his murdered family. There were no tears shed for Georg Bachmayer. Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.